Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Happy Wednesday. This is Godspeed TV. I'm your host, Riley Roseby, your navigating guide into this AI-enabled paradigm shift, aka the aerial economy. I'm dubbing it. I'm taking it. I'm planting my flag. I'm going to be that guy. Nobody else is talking about the aerial economy, but it's coming. We got a rate cut today, and the small caps surged. They absolutely ripped. So here's the daily chart. You can see nice candle there, up about 1.5%, breaking out to new all-time highs. Shout out the small caps, right? We need this rotation. It can't just be 7 stocks like everybody talks about, but let's just keep moving forward because there's a lot going on. So GE Vernova, we talked about this last week, you guys. The stock is up like 100 points since we talked about it last week, but they doubled their dividend. Here's the press release. GE Vernova raises multi-year financial outlook, doubles dividend, and increases buyback authorization. I'm going to run you guys through the little press release notes here. Check this out. The company now anticipates $52 billion of revenue and 20% adjusted EBITDA margin by 2028. Big increases, right? Up from $45 billion in revenue and 14%. Expects to grow total backlog from $135 billion to approximately $200 billion by the end of the year 2028. And then finally, down at the bottom, for all those dividend-loving investors, the board of directors declares a 50-cent per share quarterly dividend payable in the first quarter of 2026 and increases its share repurchase authorization to $10 billion, up from $6 billion. So here's the stock. Nice pop today, up 16%. Like I said, this name's up about 100 points since we talked about it last week. GE Vernova, they're building the infrastructure energy layer for this AI economy. This is a hot stock. Let's move on. Ondas Holdings. Now, this is my favorite drone play. True aerial economy, right? These guys make telecommunications networks using drones and robotics to help shore up infrastructure, material infrastructure plays. The stock got kind of clobbered today. I'm not going to lie. I definitely had to take some shares off the table. I was very, very heavy going into the Fed meeting. You know, this is a small cap stock. We saw the small caps rip. I had that thesis that Ondas was going to follow in light of the small caps, and it failed to do so. So we had to take some skin off the table. But structurally, this thing is still in an uptrend. The uptrend is still intact. The company still grew revenue at 600% from last quarter. We're still moving forward. I want to get to Photronics. Photronics flew 45% today following its earnings report. Here's the highlights. Now, this is the really interesting one, right? Because normally when we would see a stock gap up 20% pre-market and continue follow through the rest of the day, you would see some numbers that just make you shake your head. But we didn't really see numbers that made us shake our head. The company beat fourth quarter revenue and EPS estimates by significant margins and issued a first quarter outlook that was above market expectations. So this is kind of in line with what we've been seeing, right? They're beating top and bottom lines. They're revising their forward-looking guidance. All is well. But then take a look at this chart, up 45%, folks. That is a massive breakout. Gnarly candle. The buyer showed up intraday, right? This wasn't just a gap and kind of fade or gap and just crap, like do nothing. This thing gapped and went. Gapped up 20%, gained another 20% throughout the day, up a total of 45%. And take a look at this quarterly chart, right? We're really zooming out here. So each candlestick represents 3 months. This thing knocking on the doors of all-time highs. Above the dot-com bubble highs, I should add, right? This company, they were around for the 87 crash. I don't know how many folks in the audience were around for the 87 crash. I wasn't. I'm going to be the first to admit I was not around for the 87 crash. Big level there. Big level. Photronics, this is going to be a stock to watch. I'm not looking to get in necessarily in the next day, 2 days, 3 days, even a couple weeks. I might even have to wait for the new year before looking for a tight risk entry in this one. But what a strong signal. What a strong signal that the bull market is still intact, right? I know Kathy Wood's calling for a new bull market, but did the bull market ever go away? Kathy? I don't think so. We got some interesting bull market heuristics, though. I took some screenshots from the World Wide Web this morning. Tesla, Bezos and Musk race to bring data centers to space. So this is right in line with this whole AI aerial economy thesis. We need data centers. There's tremendous energy with the sun. The sun is a very, very powerful energy vessel, and we can get stronger, collect stronger energy through solar power if we're using them in space. So, of course, the billionaires out there are looking to build data centers in space, being more efficient. Not bullish, or not bearish, excuse me, very bullish. SpaceX, shout out Elon. Elon's always in the headlines, right? We got to keep an eye on Elon. SpaceX reportedly planning 2026 IPO with a $1.5 trillion valuation. Now, any folks in the chat could correct me if I'm wrong, but has any company IPO'd at a $1 trillion valuation? I think we're going to see a couple this cycle, right? Before it's all said and done, I think we're going to get a couple companies above $1 trillion. OpenAI, maybe one. SpaceX, obviously one to watch. But speaking of OpenAI, I want to go move on to this next slide here. ChatGPT awarded Apple's most downloaded app in 2025 in the United States. You guys, if AI was just a fad, would ChatGPT be the most downloaded app on America's Apple's iPhones? I don't think so. I don't think so. And one last one for us, because we talked about GE Vernova, right? We're talking about data centers, providing the infrastructure layer for data centers. Well, this is one of my favorite companies. They're still private. Knocking on wood, we'll see them go public here in this cycle. It might be next cycle just because they're making a supersonic jet. Takes a long time to develop something like that. But Boom Supersonic raises $300 million to build natural gas turbines for data centers. You guys see a common theme? Electrification, data centers, AI. It's all coming together. It's all coming together. So these heuristics, right? These aren't necessarily headlines that we would see in a downtrend. These are very much bull market heuristics that we're seeing. Bull market headlines. You don't see companies raising hundreds of millions of dollars. You don't hear companies talking about IPOing at a multi-trillion-dollar valuation, but that's where we're at, right? The Fed is continuing to cut rates. We've talked about it all fall. We're in a rate cutting environment, and we got to keep an eye on Tesla. I'm going to leave you guys with a couple charts here, but don't sleep on Tesla. One reason being its reaction from the Fed cut today. This is one of the strongest large cap stocks in terms of relative strength coming out of the Fed decision today, knocking on the doors of this, 465 level. I think we got to 455 intraday. Absolutely monster move after the Fed announced its rate cut. Don't sleep on this name, you guys. This thing is going to break out. It's going to leave folks in the dust. If you're not involved, what does JC say? If you're not at least 3% allocated, you're technically short. Well, I think you got to pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers, JC. I'm calling you out. Pump your numbers up. Tesla looks like it's ready to rock and roll. And we've been waiting for it all year. So if it doesn't come in 2025, we'll still continue to wait. Because like I said, this is a name that once it goes, it goes. And you don't want to be chasing this thing up at 500, 520, 540, 560. You want to have a position, a solid core position, kind of in this 450, 465 level. Maybe keep your stop, I don't know, below that 420 level, right? We live in a simulation, I guess. Probably should keep your stops there and let this one ride. Let this one ride. JC was even talking about, if you guys caught that, the Fed rate decision live stream that him, Spencer, and Jason did, they're talking about consumer discretionaries. Well, Tesla's one of the largest holdings in consumer discretionary, if not the largest. I don't know the percentages off the top of my head, but got to keep an eye on here, right? Tesla's not just a car company. They build robots. They're involved with data centers. They're building chips, autonomous driving. Elon's teasing out a flying vessel of some sort. Who knows if that's true? But we want to keep an eye on the Tesla. And then I got an early Christmas gift for you guys because it is the holiday season. We got one other stock that popped up on my radar today. Started nibbling into it a little bit. Didn't want to jump the gun with the Fed meeting this afternoon, but take a look at Celestica here. Again, data center play through and through. Beautiful earnings gap up. End of October. This thing has done absolutely nothing since. We are pressed on all-time highs, looking for a breakout through, I don't know, what would you say, 360? We could say 360. 360 feels like a good level. Really, we just got to get above those early November highs, and this thing could be off to the races. Now, Before I let you guys go, let's take a look at this earnings announcement from Celestica because this is the key, right? We talked about it a little bit with the GE Vernova, and we talked about it a little bit with the Photronics, right? There's a few metrics in each earnings report that really stand out, and this is across the board. Depending on the company, the little KPIs are going to be different, right? If you're looking at social media stocks, it's all about the daily active users. That's the number one KPI to be keeping an eye on. Well, let's take a look here with Celestica. Revenue grew 28% year over year. They exceeded the high end of their guidance range. They're increasing their 2025 outlook and anticipating growth of 31 to 39%. So this is how I comb through earnings reports. I'm not going in reading word for these things. We're just looking for those KPIs. We're looking for revenue growth. We're looking for margin expansion. We're looking for guidance updates. Like these are what drives stocks. If you guys haven't checked out William O'Neill's How to Make Money in Stocks and his Can Slim model, it's a great place to start, right? It kind of breaks down what KPIs, key performance indicators, are important. And the more time you spend in the market, the more you'll learn what KPIs are worth paying attention to within various industries. Revenue, margins, and guidance. I mean, these are three staples pretty much across the board. There could be some variations between industries and stuff, but these are the numbers to look at. These are the numbers to look at. So, folks, that's all I got for us today. It's been what feels like a long week. Maybe you were just coming off kind of like a Thanksgiving hangover or something still, but I don't know about you guys. It feels like a long week. Maybe it was a Fed meeting. I don't know. Once again, keep an eye on Tesla. Ondas, I would not be surprised to see a big move in either direction there. This is one of the most volatile stocks in the market, right? It likes to rip 10%, 20% a day, then fall down 10, 20% a day. So just be prepared. Trade safe. Allocate accordingly. I'll see you guys next week.